Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are. We're super excited for you to attend to the Fiddler product webinar, Visibility, Context, and Control in Enterprise Agentic Observability. In today's webinar, we'll be going through the Fiddler Overview, the agentic shift for app development, observability across the AI lifecycle, and we'll go through a live demo. And towards the end, we'll answer Q&A. So a few household reminders during the webinar. Please take the poll questions on the screen. We'll flash them, a couple of them throughout the webinar. We're interested in knowing about your agentic journey. The webinar recording link will be shared via email. And if you have any questions throughout the webinar and you want to ask to your speakers, please ask the questions, upvote any questions in the Q&A box, and please deactivate any AI note takers. They will be removed from the webinar. And today's webinar speakers are, my name is Karen. I'm the Principal Product Marketing Manager, and I'll be the host for today's webinar. And we have Will Pong, who's the VP of Product, who will be walking us through our Fiddler Overview and Agentic Observability Overview as well. And we also have Nick Nolan, who's Solutions Engineering Manager, who will show us a live demo. Over to you, Will. Let's see.
All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. First and foremost, we want to give you a little bit of background of who Fiddler is, what is our motivation as a company, and then we'll actually get into our topic of the day, which is focusing on agents and sort of the amazing shift that we've seen this past year. So first and foremost, as we take a look at what's on the screen, we're going to just call out something that many of you are already experiencing, that developing teams are actually entering a new frontier. Whether you're developing ML models and predictive solutions, or actually getting into Gen AI with LLMs and agents, you're actually experiencing a lot of new things, right? And across these different vectors that we see here, security, new entry points of how users may use or abuse what you're building, transparency and understanding what your code is doing, when and why, and actually making sure that it's doing what you expected it to do in a non-deterministic way in terms of accuracy. And finally, making sure that it's reliable, that AI is going to repeat and do the task that you expect it to do, even with all of its power. So flying into this can maybe feel like a black hole, but we're going to help you get out. What we've learned by working with many customers across Fortune 500 and Global 2000 and more is these are some of the key measures that are important in order to make sure that AI is trusted, that it's safe, secure, accurate, it's working the way we expected it to, as we talked about on the previous slide. So on the predictive side, you can say things like performance, how often is this able to predict what I think it's going to do, and so on down the line. But it's really about the data on that side. On the other piece with generative AI, we're seeing with LLMs and further now with agents, AI taking tasks and performing actions. So it's important for us to actually understand for both the inputs and outputs, are they safe? But also, are the actions they're taking accurate and expected? So that's really our motivation at Fiddler, is to be able to understand, how do we generate this kind of intelligence for our customers? And more importantly, how do you operationalize that and make sure that the AI that you have in flight is working the way you want it to? So the best place to start is by saying that Fiddler is so much more than a data visualization or a logging tool. It all starts with us with our AI science teams. We have AI scientists on staff that actually build models in-house that actually come with our observability product. So out of the box, you have both preventative intelligence in the form of guardrails, where you can actually get in front of malicious or undesirable actions, as well as out-of-the-box measurements for online and offline evaluation of your apps, so that you're actually able to understand things like accuracy, context, faithfulness, and more across every application that you're building. Importantly, we're also very flexible. We're not stopping at just what Fiddler makes. There's a lot of great intelligence out there, including foundational models like OpenAI and Anthropic. So we allow you to bring your own judge as well for complex reasoning tasks that are maybe specific or custom to your organization. You can actually build that with Fiddler, and we'll orchestrate it all for you. So if you think about this kind of intelligence in the larger landscape, this is what we call our Fiddler Trust Models that take these raw AI logs and actually feed it into that trust service that I mentioned. So when you have both our in-house models as well as our external models, you're now able to produce those metrics that I mentioned earlier in a really easy and straightforward way for all of the data that's flowing into the product. When you can do that well, here's what happens. You're able to kind of look at the entire AI lifecycle, which Nick will be telling us about in a moment. Everything from evaluating your app as you build it to getting into monitoring at scale and actually building the right kind of analyses to understand what to improve. And finally, as I mentioned with guardrails, to protect your application at scale. The way we do that is by making sure we give you operational tools like alerts, root cause analysis, clustering analysis, different tools like this to be able to deeply understand what your app is doing across the board, which we'll be happy to show you in just a little bit. Now, finally, I want to be very clear. Fiddler is the trusted name in AI in the enterprise. And so it's important for us to actually live where you all live in your organizations. So that means both secure cloud options, but also being able to deploy on-prem in your VPCs for maximum security and control. So we're really here to meet our customers where we're at and make sure that the stakes are high and we're meeting those stakes in the right way. All of that culminates into what we call the Fiddler AI Observability Platform. So ultimately, what we hope is for our customers that use our product, if you do it right, we're actually going to be able to help you deliver high performance AI that does what you want it to do and delivers great outcomes for your business, while also avoiding risk that can happen with a new frontier. And finally, we'll help you tune and optimize your app to maximize your ROI, the right models, the right spend, the right outcomes every time. So that's who we are as Fiddler overall. So let's get into today's topic, which is about the agentic shift. Why is this different than what we know, even with generative techniques from the last 12 months? Well, if you think about it, on the left-hand side, this is what a lot of us knew as AI just a few quarters ago, right? This might be a customer service chatbot, or it might be some kind of knowledge repository, where it was a single agent and a single task. Customer might ask a question, you process that, you come out with a response. But today's agentic apps are much more complex in the best way. So if you look on the right side, you can kind of see that many applications now are not just a single agent or a single model, they're actually multi-agent, a complex organism that actually follows different pathways from supervisors to specialists and back again in order to achieve great outcomes. So in order to be able to understand this more sophisticated and complex world as tools are getting better, we actually need to understand two types of data. On the one hand, we actually have to behave like an application performance management tool for agents. We need to understand things like latency, API response times, how your infrastructure is being used, and even behavioral metrics like what your users are doing and the outcomes they're trying to achieve. But on the other side, which is very critical, is what we mentioned earlier about Fiddler's AI intelligence and batteries included to be able to measure how the models themselves behave as well. Things like hallucination, prompt injection, and model drift, as well as bias. So being able to pull all of that together in one platform is what makes us agentic observability and security. And that's what we're really focused on in this next chapter here at Fiddler. So you can see for us, the mission is not just to combine this data, but it's actually to help you get rid of that black box, to help you understand why agents are doing what they do and not just what they're producing. We want to make sure we do that so that you have the best performing agents possible in the safest way. Yeah, there are three aspects of this that I want to be able to share. The first piece is what we call visibility. You might see a lot of apps out on the market right now that will do some of the standard log things like sessions, traces, and spans. These are unique types of log data to agents these days. And it's great to be able to have that and sift through logs, but it doesn't contain business context. So without being able to understand which agent performed a certain event or action, and further, how those agents roll up to a use case or an application, oftentimes you're flying blind and just cherry picking your logs, trying to look for agnostic issues. And that doesn't tell you a lot about how your apps are actually working and winning. So Fiddler has the capability to do this, to actually allow you to onboard applications onto our platform, detect agents on the fly, and build a diagram, kind of like what you see here on the right. The ability to say, hey, for my application, these are the agents that are working. Here are my key performance measurements that I need to look at, and actually get into managing your app with just a few clicks. So with visibility, the next thing that we need to think about is context. So this is where our AI science at Fiddler comes into play. Not only do we run our own models to help you score your logs as they come in, we do it in context of the session or the action for your users. You can kind of see that on screen here. As a user prompts to, let's say in this case with our travel agent, go and depart on a flight, not only are we monitoring the agents themselves, but we are also monitoring the underlying models that may power those agents as well, whether that's ML or it's agentic in nature. And so because of that, we're able to pull all of those measurements together in a dashboard, things on the ROI side, like token spend, but also in performance, like accuracy and latency. And finally, safety with hallucinations. These are all things that you can pull together in one view so you understand why your agent is doing something, not just what they're doing. Finally, the third piece is control. I've mentioned guardrails before, but here are two specific examples to ground yourself on. On the left hand, you can think about guardrailing your inputs. These are things that users will put in, whether that's a back office employee or that's an end customer that's sort of looking to protect a customer service use case or a customer facing one. You want to make sure that the inputs that are coming in are safe and don't lead your agent astray. We've all seen news articles of, hacking different agents to make them act like undesirable people or sort of produce undesirable outcomes. And if you look on the left, that's where Fiddler comes in. We're actually able to sit in the runtime of your application, detect those inputs, and signal when things are wrong, even before the session ends. So we're able to protect from bad outcomes on the input side. On the other piece, we also protect on your outputs. You don't want to be the company in the news that is leaking PII data of their customers or getting hacked in new ways. And so imagine Fiddler being able to, again, sit in line and understand the output coming from your agents for things like PII, social security numbers, credit cards, full names, receipts, things like this. We want to make sure that the output that's coming out is safe for your use cases as an enterprise. So in summary, what we're trying to do here as a company is recognize how agents are changing what we already know about observability. We need to take new techniques and new approaches to how we make agents more visible, how we give you context of what decisions they made and why, and finally, give you the control for the outcomes that you want to achieve, protecting against bad outcomes as well as reinforcing good ones. So for a deeper look in how that works across the AI development lifecycle, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Nick Nolan, and he's going to show us both that journey as well as dig into the product itself. Over to you, Nick.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. And hey, everyone. My name is Nick Nolan. I lead our solutions engineering team here at Fiddler. And what that means is every single day I talk with some of the largest companies in the world, understanding their AI use cases and how Fiddler can help support their observability and the outcomes and KPIs they want to have out of their AI usage. So I've seen a lot in the market, and I'm glad to share some of what we can provide to those customers here today in a demonstration. I'm going to go through a couple slides first before I actually get into the product. The first thing I want to talk about is kind of the structure of what Fiddler provides to our customer base when it comes to end-to-end lifecycle for agentic development and observability. When it comes to agents, this has been a relatively new concept for many organizations over the last couple of years. This has gone from, individual, traditional predictive AI or ML type of models into, Gen AI, LLM type of models, now into these multi-agent models that become incredibly complex to actually understand what's occurring within them. And so organizations are coming to us saying, hey, we need to understand exactly what's happening with these models and with these applications before we have like the faith and trust to actually deliver them live. And that's really where Fiddler comes into play to help with our customer base. It all starts up here in the upper left-hand corner with the build and the test methodology. I like to split this up into, kind of pre-production and post-production when it comes to having AI application actually working for your organization. When it comes to pre-production, your teams are today probably going through very rigorous testing, understanding what's actually happening as we're building these applications from, what are the KPIs are important to us? What kind of cost efficiencies do we need to think about with these applications as we're building them? As they're being built, we also want to test these applications, right? We want to be able to compare side by side, A/B test. How does one experiment compare to the other? If I were to change some prompts, if I were to change some specific attributes of an agent, how's that really going to impact my outcomes? And so you want to be able to test that as you are actually developing the application. Once you're in a position where you're feeling really good about your application, you're ready to go live, what's most important at this point is that you monitor it, right? Once it goes live, all those KPIs you developed in the build and the test cycle that you're preparing for, you actually want to be able to have that all-important production monitoring for those attributes that are critical for your organization. And so Fiddler provides that real-time monitoring, streaming those events of what's occurring within your AI application. And then beyond even monitoring, you want to improve that, right? It's okay, we have this live, we know it's working pretty well, we see some gaps, we want to make improvements. And so what Fiddler offers is that ability to understand the why. We have root cause analysis built into our application. We can actually pinpoint some of those particular issues that are occurring within your sessions, traces, spans, and the overall application, and highlight that to your teams. This is also really important for your governance teams as well, right? It's not just AI developers we're working with. We're working with development teams, we're working with executives that are sponsoring these projects because they want to ensure that their AI projects are functioning as expected. And so Fiddler provides this end-to-end lifecycle and view for our customers. Let's think about what this looks like in production, in a real use case. Let's start with that development piece. Typically, for most organizations I speak with, I'm often starting with the AI developer. I'm understanding, what are those use cases on how are you using AI today? What are those agentic experiences that are important for you and your organization? How are you building and testing those? And so what we're able to offer here from the Fiddler standpoint is that observability into evaluating individual experiments, then also comparing those experiments to others. So you have a baseline, and you can also move that baseline into the improvements that you made. And you have that auditability and traceability of those experiments you've done in the past. So you can stress test your tool and say, this application is ready for production. Once it is ready for production, you're ready to put it into production. What I've seen with a lot of customers I've spoken with is that they're typically starting internally, right? They're thinking, okay, we're using AI both internally and externally eventually, but today we have an internal application we want to put in production. We want to have that monitoring around it. We've done our stress test, we've done our KPI analysis, we're ready to go. Okay, let's put it into production here. And this is where other people might come into play beyond the AI engineer. It's not just, the model owner who's most focused upon this application. Now it comes into play the folks who are behind the scenes who are sponsoring this project, who also may have like a governance landscape that they need to build around understanding, what kind of impact does this model and application have to our security and our governance teams internally. And so this is where when we have this in production, you can have high-level KPIs, you can have safety detection around potentially you have PII or PHI leakage, maybe you want to have jailbreak protection so no one's misusing the application. All of these things are very well controlled within the application and can be deployed even in line in your applications using our guardrail capability. But then over time, it's also going to come past just understanding, how that model is performing in production. We also may want to have an improvement to that model as well. And so this is an iterative cycle. It's not just, let's build it, let's deploy it, now we're monitoring it. We also want to improve it. So Fiddler offers an observability capability into the KPIs and root cause analysis of what's actually occurring within individual sessions. So you can have these high-level trends that are discovered, you're notified of, and then you can jump into those specific sessions where there may be problematic instances, or maybe PHI is leaked, or, like there's a security event, right? So ability to flag this up and have very clear visibility into it is very critical for our customer base. All right, well, let's jump into the actual demonstration of the platform here. All right, awesome. Well, let's get into the application here. The first thing we're taking a look at as we get into the Fiddler application is typically our homepage, which is really focused around all the different applications that we are monitoring, whether it's traditional ML, single agent LLMs, or even multi-agent applications. But for today's focus, we're really, what's important for us here today is going to be on those multi-agent applications that are critical for us as organizations that we're developing right now. Now, imagine ourselves as an AI engineer, right? We want to put an AI application into production, and we want to ensure that, this model is performing as expected. Well, the first thing we may want to do within Fiddler is to add that application. So we can actually create a new project within Fiddler. I'm just going to go ahead and call this a webinar project really quickly. We also have enterprise-grade role-based access control throughout the application, across projects, across models, so that only the right people can see the right data within the application, and you have that kind of security in mind as you think about an enterprise-grade application that Fiddler is offering. We also are able to create our application name. So I'm just going to call this, webinar, test in this case, just so we can kind of get things started. And right away, what Fiddler is offering you is the ability to integrate into this tool set, right? So we're trying to make it easy for our customers to set these things up. Everything you've seen here so far, by the way, is done in the UI, as I've shown you, but it can also be done programmatically. In fact, most of our AI engineers and the technical folks we speak with every day, they prefer to do it programmatically. So all of this can be done using our available API as well. Now, as we develop that particular application, we may also want to apply what's called evaluator rules. So within every application, actually, I have one here I had set up a couple months ago that we're going to work from in our demo here today, but I actually set up a number of evaluator rules already into this application. But it's a really important thing to think about as you're building your application is like, okay, what kind of measurements do we want to have on this? Most companies I speak with, it's really important for them that the responses are accurate. We don't have a lot of hallucination. We have relevant responses. PII leakage is too minimal. And if it's certain types of PII, we need to prevent that. It's also safe to use. There's no kind of jailbreaking that's occurring. Well, you're able to apply all of these different evaluator rules from our trust service that Will spoke about a few minutes ago here within the UI as well as programmatically. So I can come in here and say that, hey, I want to put in place our PII detection, and we can come in and say, this is just a PII detect. We want to select the specific types of PII that's important for us. We may also have like specific PII that is okay for us to use, that we are allowing with this application, right? By putting this in place, we can also apply this over time to the past data we've also ingested. So this also goes back to that evaluation concept. It's not just monitoring what's happening in production in real time, but we can apply these same evaluator rules over what we've already ingested, what we've already understood from logging of our data. So maybe one day, in the future, you have a brand new rule that you want to implement. You have a new policy you want to have evidence for. Maybe you want to use LM as a judge and have your own prompt and template around it. Well, you can just build this here in the application and apply it to all of your past data, right? So this is a super powerful type of tool that our customers are utilizing very heavily today. They like the customizability of all of these evaluator rules that can be applied across all of their past data, all of their future data. They want to set up alerts and notifications for this. That's great. We do all of that out of the box here within the application. The goal here is we understand every single customer is a little bit different. Not every customer has the same, specific metric that they want to capture. So you can build what's important for you, and you can apply those types of evaluator rules and metrics to things that are, uncommon and not so well distinguished in the marketplace, but it's important for you as an organization. So that's just a little bit about how we set up these applications, right? We talked about onboarding a new application. We provide those API keys. We also have pre-built SDKs into common systems and tools that provide these types of orchestration logs that are important for us. These open telemetry, OTel type of logs that are important for us to understand the details. We have that pre-built in our application. I actually built a chatbot type of concierge service that we have live on our website today. You guys are welcome to go and check out in our doc site. But what this does is it's actually behind the scenes. It's a multi-agent application. I want us to walk through a scenario here because I think it kind of helps paint the picture of what's actually happening behind the scenes. As Will was talking earlier, I went ahead and just entered in a question, pretty straightforward one. How does Fiddler support LLMs? And we got a pretty good response here. It's talking about, it referenced our RAG-based documentation site, everything we have online, and it's providing details into, what Fiddler actually provides as far as LLM support. Now, a couple things to note here. In our chatbot, I also had some of our guardrail capabilities enabled. So I was checking on things like safety. Was this a jailbreaking attempt? We had a very low score here, not a jailbreaking attempt. We're going to continue. We also wanted to see what kind of RAG-based documents it referenced, as well as faithfulness. Was this an accurate response? This was an accurate response. So this is how some of our guardrail capabilities can be implemented in your own agentic systems. This can be implemented in any step along the way. And I just have it demonstrated here to kind of show how this can be done in one conversation, one question, and how we can ping all these different services here. But how that's actually represented here in the tool is actually pretty cool and pretty easy to understand for even non-technical folks. As I jump back into the Fiddler application, what I'm looking at here is how we're able to see what I've developed is called a business dashboard. We talked a little bit about RBAC controls earlier. One important feature that we do offer our customers and how we are enterprise grade is we have very detailed RBAC controls for any kind of user and use case that you have. So this could be, maybe a model owner, an AI engineer. They only want to see like the model, and they want to see technical details for that model, right? Excuse me. But then maybe a governance persona, someone who is in charge of AI governance holistically, might have something else that's important for them, right? So you can control the access and you can develop different dashboards with a few clicks of the button here in the application. It's very easy to do. So for example here, I have developed this one business dashboard. I started with my high level KPIs. I'm looking at concepts like traffic. I want to see like what's actually hitting OpenAI because we're using OpenAI as a foundation model. Well, it's a bit expensive from a tokenization standpoint. So I want to keep an eye on expenses there. I also want to look at things like, are we hitting our RAG vector database often? And what kind of general accuracy score are we seeing? I want to improve that accuracy over time, right? So these are just a few high level metrics that are important for me. I also wanted to understand the traffic over time into these different groups of tools that I'm utilizing. And I'm actually going to click into one of these charts here because these charts are very user-friendly, very easy to understand, manipulate, and build your own. Over here on the right is my chart building capabilities. I can say, I want to see traffic over time. I want to apply specific filters or segments of data that are important for me. I may also want to have, specific metrics that I want to track, such as faithfulness, such as, a custom prompted evaluator model that I want to see a score of. All of these things can be applied here in the tool with a few clicks of a button, make it very, very easy to use for our customer base. We also have the ability to dive into this data. So this is going to begin to look similar to what you see with some other tools out there where you want to see like traces and spans. Now we have that ability to get traces and spans because the traces and spans are really kind of the root of everything we're offering for our customers here. We're trying to understand the details of what's happening at every single event, but then we're rolling it up in a way, we're providing evaluation scores in a way that are unique on the market, that we want to not have human review. We want AI to review it and then flag it up when humans do need to step in. We can actually find my question I asked in our chatbot. How does Fiddler support LLMs, right? So we saw this question occur, we can jump in, and then we get this really unique view into the timeline of what actually happened within this model, within this application, within this session, right? It started with our question. It started with the input of, how does Fiddler support LLMs? If we look here on the right, we can see the input and output from this particular agent. In my particular case, we built this agent into starting with a supervisory model. So we wanted this agent experience to first start with the supervisory model and coordinate which other agent needs to go into. But in that first step of the supervisory model, I wanted to understand sentiment. In this case, it was neutral. Yeah, not positive or negative, just a simple question. We wanted to understand classification. In this case, we had a classification of a question. Makes sense, right? It was a very simple question we asked them. Does it have PII? False, right? So all these different evaluations that are important for me, whether it's around safety of the model, whether it's around efficiency of the model, tokenization that was used, all of this is being provided every step along the way. And then we can kind of track this down into every step as well. So I showed you in the chat here where we had a few guardrails that were invoked. Well, Fiddler's tracking that as well. We did our guardrail for PII. We did our guardrail for safety, right? We're seeing very, very low latency for these, by the way. Our safety guardrail took about 150 milliseconds, very, very quick to do that test. And also it's happening concurrently with other calls, right? So we're not slowing up the process at all, but we're able to actually understand these safety concepts and make a stop to the conversation. It might be unsafe. But in this case, it was not determined to be unsafe. The PII was acceptable. Well, then we can say, okay, let's go hit our RAG database, right? We want to actually hit that server. We can see the query and the output into that server. So all these technical details, if you were having to do this without a tool like Fiddler, it would be a science project, right? You would have to go dig through logs. You have to trace together these session IDs and understand every step along the way. But here I am just clicking through it, seeing every step that occurred. Maybe there was high latency in a step, right? I mean, a number of seconds like this to call a foundation model, that may not be acceptable for me, okay? So I can come in and I can set up some tolerance ranges on, what kind of amount of seconds that I want to expect in different steps along the way. And I want to be notified as we begin to expand beyond that. But in summary of what we're offering here is just a very clear view into exactly what's happening within this session, within this experience, right? We're tying together all of these traces and spans. We're aggregating it for your teams here, and we're providing this value to have very customizable KPIs, metrics, dashboards, reports, and charts that are important for your teams. We also do see this, I mentioned a bit ago, we initially kind of started working with typically technical folks. We typically work with AI engineers. So this has been history of our company. We've always worked very, very well with the technical personas out there, but we built our product in a way that allows us to also be working with some semi-technical people, so perhaps like AI governance folks. In fact, over the last year, I'd say I've spoken with head of AI and, AI governance teams more than any other, because it's really important for organizations nowadays to be able to produce this type of evidence of, we are monitoring our applications. Here are all of our important KPIs and metrics that we have defined, and here's how we are instituting it across every single AI application that we have in production, right? So it's a huge value to our customers to be able to understand how these models are actually performing for the KPIs that are important for them. And it doesn't take, an AI engineer to set all this up. You can do this here within the tool. You can point, click, drag, drop, build the charts and dashboards that are important for you, and have those views and visibility that's going to kind of tie everything together for your teams. So in summary, that's kind of the journey from end to end on how we help our customers improve their agentic AI experiences into one seamless flow. So wanted to go ahead and pause here, open the floor to any questions that we have, and start getting those answered for the team. Really appreciate the time here today, guys.
Thank you so much, Nick, for showing us the demo and giving us all the insights and the details. I'm going to invite Will Pong back to join us to the webinar as well, and we'll open up the Q&A. I saw some really good questions that came in throughout the webinar in Will Pong's section as well as Nick's section. So first off, let me go through some of these questions here. So
should we just kind of take it from the top, Karen? Or?
We could, but I think there's some that kind of were in Nick's section, and I want to answer them, make sure that we answer them like right away. Yeah, we'll go through them. I think earlier, so one of the questions was, does Fiddler offer governance around agentic AI deployments? I'm looking for the technical product to decide which agents get promoted to production.
Yeah, let's dig into that. So generally speaking, the relationship between observability and governance is a piece where, you have some type of policy, right? That might be something structured like a compliance framework, for example, ISO 42K1 or EU AI Act, or it might just be simply your company's policies. Something has to have bias less than 2% or whatever it is. So for Fiddler, our approach is what we call custom metrics. The ability to see all of the sort of KPIs that I mentioned earlier, safety, faithfulness, et cetera, and you can set what that looks like in terms of an overall composite metric that makes sense for your company. And so the idea of being able to say, hey, is this app compliant or is this app governed well? You could do that just by looking at the individual scores, or you can define those as key metrics in sort of our next few releases here coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of how we're thinking about it, but I would love for folks to sort of touch on that if there are any additional questions there.
Yeah, and there's another question from Dennis Moreau. So he says, your accommodation of governance, lifecycle, and test validated control is interesting to me. However, my governance intentions, my agent app access and capabilities, my threat awareness, and my available platform controls all change over time. How do you capture the evolution of my design intentions, governance decisions, threat risk treatment, and agent access evolution?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is helpful to build on the last question where we have observability and governance and what's the relationship, right? For Fiddler, we have a deep partnership with folks like Credo AI as an example, but also working with folks like Vanta OneTrust, et cetera, to produce evidence for those kinds of controls. Very similar to how Wiz and CrowdStrike have a relationship with those types of platforms for cloud security, right? So our idea is we have the sensors, we have the scoring, we have the metrics. Can we push those in the form of reports and dashboards and links in a way that satisfies that attestation, right? In other words, we help you walk the walk after you've talked the talk of your policy. So Fiddler's immediate goals are not to drive the policy creation ourselves. You won't see us sort of get into that world of creating compliance frameworks, tracking your progress towards them, et cetera, because to your point, those things can change rapidly over time. We want to leave that to experts that have staff that do that all day, every day. What we want to do is meet the gap that those systems have. They're not connected to those sensors. And in some cases, there'll be connectors like AWS or other hyperscalers where you can glean some information. But you're ultimately going to need reporting from an observability platform like us to fully attest when your auditor comes and make sure that you're safe. So
Okay.
we're excited to unveil more of those partnerships over time, but that's the idea there is we want to be governance's best friend, and we can put it that way.
Great. There is a question where they say it's a two-part question from two different people, but they're similar. We currently call OpenAI and Anthropic models for LLM as a judge. How does your trust service or models work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So earlier we mentioned batteries included. We're flexible enough to support foundational providers like OpenAI and Anthropic. But we found two things generally by just passing an LLM as a judge to those big models. One, it's really expensive. I see another question from Tyler Smith about how to track LLM costs. And by the way, LLM costs aren't just for your app, it's also for the evaluators that are measuring your app too. It's super overkill to use like a ChatGPT 5 or an Opus 4.5 to score your system. So oftentimes we see people spend out of control, not realizing what that means. So that's our first recommendation is sample if you need to, have very specific judges if you need that reasoning complexity. But for us, the models that come out of the box, that's true no matter how you deploy Fiddler. So in the cloud, we would actually host those for you. We built our own inference server, GPU accelerated models that are able to score against toxicity, faithfulness, et cetera, because we've tuned them to be that case. So they're extremely performant and fast enough to even do guardrails. But of course, we can use different tuned versions of them for deeper analysis as well. And so that gives you all the control. As an enterprise, you can run those for privacy and security, knowing that your prompts never leave you and go to the internet. That's great. But we also help you control your spend because it's a flat cost to run your GPUs rather than spending token by token to go score your models.
Okay. So that was the second question, the second part question from Tyler on does Fiddler provide per token pre-request cost for particular LLM? So
yeah, absolutely. So we track tokens. To be clear, the first question is more about how do we score models, right? Including OpenAI and Anthropic and why you might want to use Fiddler. I think Tyler's question might be a little bit more towards, hey, I'm building an app. I want to measure my ROI, right? Being able to look at my token spend, maybe understand cost analysis against my own price table. Those are actually analyses you're going to see from Fiddler coming in the sort of near term here, just after the holidays as we're building. The idea here is we want to go much further than just diagnostic counting of things. We want to give you insights, right? Token spend is good, but it's better to actually know your cost on an app by app basis. So that's what you can expect from us in the coming weeks.
Okay. And there was a question earlier from Sandeep Kumar, and I know you answered him via text. So the question was, cloud providers are also providing these capabilities to convenience the tech and finance leadership to make investment decisions. How do you go about it?
It's a great question. It's a champion question, right? So there's two parts here. One is some tools that you already might be working with. Like if you're an AWS shop, Bedrock might be telling you, hey, just use CloudWatch and use a bunch of these things, right? Or if you're using OpenAI, they might have a form of observability just for their model, right? I think there's two things for this audience to keep in mind. Number one, there's going to be a lot of fragmentation because the dust is not settled. You're trying lots of different platforms, different models, different kinds of apps to determine what's right for your business, right? So if you pursue that piece, then you're going to find yourself with 5, 6, 7 dashboards looking across your AI portfolio, trying to make sense of it. At Fiddler, we believe there's power in neutrality. We want to be able to understand how to take in data from all of those sources and actually be able to give you a single pane of glass for your investment across the AI portfolio. So when you're able to use Fiddler and connect it to your systems that matter, there's one place to go for your teams. And you can even coalesce analyses across different kinds of agents in order to make it all work together.
Okay, great. All right. So the next question is, how does Fiddler measure drift, model drift, concept drift for agentic workflows in production?
Great question. And this is for all of my ML heads on the call, right? Predictive models are very different than agentic non-deterministic models, and this is one of those ways. So for ML model, I have a predefined schema. I actually might have ground truth as one of my vector sort of feature columns or labels, right? And so there's a lot of predetermined data that says this is what good is supposed to look like, and then compare actual against my forecast for what it would do. In the agentic world, this is where data sets become really important. And a lot of the pre-production flows that Nick showed us earlier are critical. So in the industry, a lot of people call these evals or experiments kind of interchangeably. The idea is you might have a sample of what good looks like. That could be human curated and annotated, like your VP of customer success going in and answering 20 questions in the perfect way, or it might be synthetically generated. It's totally up to you. But you can use that data set and the inputs from that data set to compare the expected output to the actual output of your application. And we give you simple and clean, lightweight SDKs to be able to do that and run that function. And so whether you want to do that in a notebook or actually in production environments and code, totally up to you. But the idea would be to actually prompt your LLM or prompt your agent with the inputs from your data set and compare what actually comes back to what you thought should have come back. And that's so much more than just one turn. That can actually become a whole trace over time or multiple points to compare in order to win. For example, you might want to make sure that for a particular input prompt from a customer, that you call the right tool for the job, as well as have a reasonable final output at the end. So this is where evals become critically important and provide some structure to a non-deterministic world. And yes, that is part of the Fiddler platform and part of our story of end-to-end serving developers across the lifecycle.
Okay. How do you reconcile your RBAC, people asking for capture capability, with much more complex access control policy and control of agentic applications that may be acting as assistants or collaborators?
Yeah, great question. Great question. I think there's again multiple pieces to the puzzle here. One piece is our back of the Fiddler platform ourselves, right? OTel logs actually contain a lot more information than just simple infrastructure logs that you might have passed to Datadog, right? We get the real customer inputs with their real information. We might actually get the outputs of what happens in your company. So there's a responsibility for us to be able to understand, identify, and maybe even redact those things. We're looking into those capabilities because our models already do it. So let us know if that's part of the RBAC story for you, is data access control. On top of that, we also have sophisticated enterprise RBAC controls at the organization level as well as the project level. So you can control for your team exactly who sees what at what time, and an admin has their hands over everything with an auditable trail. Now, that's just RBAC against Fiddler. If the other half of the question is about RBAC for agents entirely, the road is not fully paved yet. We see people like Anthropic, who created the MCP protocol, start to embrace OAuth as part of this, but they're also creating consortiums here around how agents can impersonate human users or even have service workers to be able to go take actions. So we're going to leave that second part as a topic for another day, but feel free to reach out to us. We have partners and friends in that space. Happy to give you some guidance there.
Okay. Okay, so the next question, this may be a follow-up question to your answer from Dennis. Much of the integrity of my controls argumentation depends deeply on pretty conventional cybersecurity and reliance characteristics. How do you connect this to this very different trustability domain?
Yeah, I think that's going a little further in security than we can go for this kind of topic here.
Yeah.
That being said, just the general answer, I will share with this group that a common pattern we're starting to see is an enterprise gateway or AI gateway upstream from a lot of these observability tools and agent tools. So in other words, being able to control your own proxy for what goes in and out before it ever gets to a network. We see observability sit on top of that. We see a lot of sort of different stories there. So that kind of resonates with what we see as what we call the control plane, where a lot of folks are actually saying, hey, can I have more control at an agnostic level, not just at an app by app level? So happy to dig into that if there's interest from the market. But for now, I'll just kind of leave that there.
Mhm. Okay. What is the best way to get data into Fiddler, specifically the telemetry data, logs, metrics, traces?
So there's a couple of pieces here. Earlier, we mentioned that developers are actually really pushing AI adoption in the mainstream, especially in the last 6 months, if not this year. This has become more than just AI science exercise. It's actually just every software development team is getting into AI. So because of that, we've really met the challenge, right? Lightweight SDKs that can be installed on different apps, whether it's agnostic, you build a Python or a Golang app or something like that, feel free to use our generic SDKs. But we also built SDKs for specific platforms like LangGraph or like AWS Strands, just to map the data properly. So some folks on this call may be aware of OTel as a protocol or as a standard. That's Open Telemetry, or OTel for short. We support OTel as well. But the tricky thing is, OTel is not a schema. OTel is just a standard. Every company still has different fields that map in different ways. So Fiddler also provides some data normalization where we're able to map information and fields that come from a certain platform and make it make sense in Fiddler in an easy way. For example, in LangChain, they don't use session IDs. They use something called conversation ID, which is part of their heritage as a chatbot interface a few years ago. We know enough to actually map that generally to sessions, and we do that for you in our SDK. So that's an example of some of the conveniences we provide, but customers are always happy, we are always happy for customers to map their own. We provide flexible tools to do that as well.
There is a question from Will to Will. The eval,
Great name, great spelling. It's awesome.
the evals and experiments you mentioned that you enable for your customers, do you see customers using those to evaluate across the LLMs, comparing versus
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any configuration change. So the interesting thing about evals, and Nick had shown it on the screen, we don't just do experiment runs against different configurations, but you can also take those runs and compare them to each other in a view. And so a common use case here is actually part of CI/CD. Someone actually might update a model in their provider, let's say going from ChatGPT 4.0 mini to ChatGPT 5 against the same data set. So you're actually controlling some variables here and just looking at performance on the other side. And you might say, hey, look, the new config did better. Other things that people will change are things like prompts, updating their system prompt to have additional context, let's say, or pointing out to more RAG information to make it stronger. We also see things like changing inference setup, like your temperature and top K, which control like how creative your agent is going to be. So for any of those changes, we actually have some customers that are already using evals as part of their CI/CD pipeline and saying, hey, whenever we change something and push a PR change, go trigger an eval run as part of Fiddler, and let's review that and make sure the next thing is not a regression or doing worse than what we have today. So absolutely hit the nail on the head. That's a major use case of evals for sure.
Well, we have a last question. So, in the last year or so, the space in observability has becoming very crowded. How do you advise, the audience in terms of, how to look into observability tools that includes eval for agentic apps?
I think the best way to answer this is maybe how I see Fiddler and our product and our strategy as distinct across the market. So rather than calling out any particular competitor, I'll say there's a couple patterns. One is you might see point solution players, people that only do evals or only do observability, or more so, even only doing this for LLM and not for ML and agents as well, right? So look for those folks that have a flashy story, but incomplete feature set. If you really care about governance, especially in the enterprise, you're going to want a tool that is that single pane of glass across all of your investments. And for Fiddler, we think we stand alone for that. The other piece is we're more than just observability. We've talked about observability, security, and governance. So giving that executive dashboard point of view that Nick was sharing with us earlier is a key part of it. You'll see a lot of developer tools out there that don't understand the business storytelling side of the house, which we do. And more importantly, as you look into the protection space or security space, the fact that we offer guardrails alongside observability means that you can prevent issues from ever occurring, as well as detect issues that are in flight. And you're using that on the same mechanisms. So you're able to sort of compare across the board and say across your life cycle, what did I detect? What went wrong? How do I improve that? And now I have the guardrails in place to make sure it doesn't happen a second time. That makes us pretty unique across the cycle as a closed loop. So we think about that, building that golden feedback loop across agentic development and making sure we win that way. So we're pretty confident in saying, again, no shade to anybody. Everyone's trying to make AI work, and we're excited about the category growing. But you won't find folks that are that comprehensive and well thought through in terms of how we support AI across the board. So that's what we're proud of doing and why we're announcing all of our agentic capabilities to make sure that our customers and future customers as well have what you need in order to accelerate adoption across the enterprise, regardless of your use case.
All right, with that said, thank you so much to both Will and Nick for sharing with us all the exciting agentic updates we have at Fiddler. And thank you for the audience. We'll be sending a recording out after this webinar. Thank you.
Oh, we look forward to hearing from a bunch of you. Have a great day, everyone.